I'm Lisa Perini, and we're at Perini Ranch Steakhouse in Buffalo Gap, Texas, and this is my husband, Tom.
I think that covers everything. We have the steakhouse, and it's been here for a long time, and we really enjoy it. In 1965, I was in Dallas, and my father passed away here in Abilene. My mother called and said, "Tommy, you need to come home." And I said, "All right," and I came home. And she said, and we were here on the ranch, and she said, "It's your job to hold this ranch together for the family." So during that time, I started raising cattle and doing everything I could to honor what she was saying. And so it was years that I did that. I actually ranched for about 18 years. But during that 18-year period, to try to make some extra money, I actually started cooking for some of the big ranches in Texas. And I've always enjoyed cooking. Had a chuck wagon. And so the Swinsons in Stanford and the Pitchfork and all those big ranches would call me because they had actually retired their chuck wagons. So we'd go up with a crew. I had cowboys, and we'd go up with a crew and feed 1,000 people at a horse sale or a reunion or whatever it was. And so it was just a way to generate some extra cash. And a dear friend of mine in Albany, Texas, Watt Matthews, he turned to me and he said, "Tom, you can do more for the beef industry by cooking it than you can by raising it, and you need to sell out." And that was in '82, and came here and opened the steakhouse in '83, and I didn't have any idea what I was doing. So I was going from one business that I thought was tough to a business that's actually harder. So when we opened the steakhouse, it was very limited menu. And of course we were doing steaks and some seafood, a little chicken, but not much because we're in the ranching business. But we picked 4 major vegetables that were ours. And we did a green bean that was wonderful, and a green chili hominy and zucchini perini, and all these dishes that we had created for ourselves. And that has been the base of our operation. We still, after 40 years, we're still selling all of these things.
So we stay very true to beef being the center of our plate, and we're very loyal to that. So whether it's in catering or in the steakhouse, beef is almost always the center of our plate. We do serve other proteins, but a lot of times along with beef, because that's who we are. And then we have customers that are just huge fans of the green chili hominy and our sourdough bread pudding. And we do a lot of specials. We love to cook. We love to make everything from scratch. And we love to start with great ingredients, and that's why Benny Keith is so important. The Ranch Burger is amazing, and we love that our customers love it as much as we do. The Ranch Burger won the contest on the Today Show, I think in 2009. We had really sat down with our burger and decided we were gonna analyze our burger from start to finish and make sure we had the best burger we could possibly have.
When I was president of TRA, I'd always heard of the James Beard House. And it was I have known chefs that, would give body parts to go to the James Beard House and cook. It was a big, big deal. And I was in Mexico cooking beef for the Texas beef industry. And a secretary I had there, the only one I had here, called up and said, "There's somebody from a place called the James Beard House that wants you to call them." And I went, "Oh my God." And this is a big deal. So I got back home and I called the James Beard House, and we talked for a minute, and they wanted us to come to New York and cook. And I said, "Do you know who we are?" And she said, "Yes." And said, "Now, we're not big fancy chefs. We do good food, but," she said, "Mr. Perini, everything's fine and stuff." So But in going to the James Beard House in those early days, I kind of figured out to go there cost about $10,000. Well, I'm gonna tell you, at that time, that was a tremendous amount of money. I mean, I had to take a crew and fly them up there, and we had to cook and serve 100 people or 150 people. And I didn't realize I was giving the food away until later. But so we talked about this, and I talked to a dear friend of mine in Abilene, H.C. Zachary, and he's in the promotion business. I said, H.C., how can I afford spending $10,000 to go to the James Beard House from Buffalo Gap and make this work? And at that time, I was cooking some tenderloins just kind of in the backyard, playing with them. And he said, why don't we get about 20 of those tenderloins? You cook them, we'll vacuum seal them, ship them to 20 different groups in New York City, and try to get a story. He said, if you can get 2 stories out of this, you can warrant that $10,000 expenditure. So I said, fine. We shipped the tenderloins out, and everything worked great. We cooked at the James Beard House. It was very successful. I think we've cooked there 7 times since then. Plus, we've received a big award, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But so we came back home, and then at one time this is a fun story, but I was over in our ranch cook shack, which we used as an office, and I had a call from a man one afternoon, and he was a fax checker, and being a country boy, I thought he was a fax machine checker. And so he kept asking me questions, and I said, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? And he said, you have a 1-800 number. And I said, no. And he said, well, get one and call me back today. And I did that, call back today. And at 4 o'clock in the morning the next day, a friend of mine from Abilene called me and he said, have you seen the New York Times? And I said, no. And we had won the mail order gift of the year by the New York Times with our tenderloins. And so what had happened was, at the New York Times, when they received this box with this cooked tenderloin in it that we were trying to get a story out of, they put it in a contest stack that we didn't know was existing. We didn't know there was a contest. And they called later and wanted another tenderloin, and I was going, brother, these boys are working me. And I sent them another tenderloin, but it turned out that they had 2,000 entries. And then the top group was 200, and we were in the top group, and the tenderloin they wanted to judge, and they did, and we won.
A restaurant is nothing if it doesn't have customers. You can have great chefs, you can have great servers, you can have great food, but if you don't have customers, it's all for naught, right? So the customer, and especially in our case, being a destination restaurant, it's really something because people drive past, you could drive past 100 restaurants on the way here today, and depending on where you're coming from. And so that's a huge thing that people make choices to eat local and eat often. Eating local is such a part of an experience of dining. For most people, us included, dining is not something you have to do because you're hungry, it's an experience.